Okay guys, so here is the rebuild back together. There was a fair amount of mechanical work to sort out the old tuning dial drive cord mechanism, and it wasn't what I thought it was at all. Since I'd had all that thing apart before, I didn't think it was worth videoing it again, but I'll show you guys what the problem was. Originally I assumed it was this little dial here, this little spindle. When you turn it, it just slipped and slipped and slipped. But then I noticed that the actual variable condenser was quite stiff to turn, so when I took the whole front plate off, it turned out to be a combination of the variable capacitor and also this little idler in the middle here. Which has a shaft running through, and the grease had all sort of gummed up on that as well. And it's such a long time ago. I know I did some cleaning around the back here when I had it off, but I don't know how much. The reason the variable condenser had got stiff, I thought it was because the actual main bearing had gummed up a bit, but it wasn't that. I don't know if I can show you guys. Here's a different one. It's not made the same way, but essentially what was happening was the way the front plate is held on to the spacing shafts. There's actually a bracket and a sort of screw mechanism that lets you change the tension or push this front plate in or out a little bit, and it was too tight. And so it had jammed up the mechanism. Slacken that screw off a little bit, and it's wonderfully loose. So I'll know for the next one. If I had, because the other set, the dial cord, it slips as well. Not anything near as badly as this one was. And so I'll have to look at that before I put that one all back in its case. It's alright, so that's that guy. I'll tart up the other one and we'll get that back together as well. It's quite a while since I did this one, so I noticed that only one of the grommets has been replaced. So obviously, to get the dial to sit properly behind the front of the cab, I replaced a grommet that goes through the chassis behind the stud. But the rest of the grommets are either missing or they're rock hard, and even the mounting nut and bolt on the one side of the speaker is completely missing. So I don't think I could accept the fact that someday somebody might take this out of the cab later on and go, wow, I wonder who did this. Because for instance, there are some delicate wires coming out of the output transformer here, and the insulation is worn off. Not quite sure how that happened, but you can see the bare wires through. So I think we're going to have to get some liquid tape on there. Obviously I did a very quick temporary lash up with the power cord, and that looks already to be in dodgy condition, so I think that has to get, since I now have a lot of the nice cloth covered period power cord, I think we got to replace that at least. Yeah, what else? Oh yeah, I got to tell you, when I was tidying up earlier on, I found the cable with the grid cap on it for the valve in the other set, and I looked high and low for this thing. There you go, wasn't looking for it and I found it.
國家反對工設置擴大參與活動，並各工隊學社重讀。若生效立法，黃德前面到辦公室，通過嗰啲中心話國家我下直光參與活動，工作需要大部分嘅參與公司，若適合差唔多500人面整超過。
One of the problems, which I thought was going to be very easy to fix, was the fact that the dial cord was slipping as you panned across the dial. That turned out to be rather involved. So I took this front plate off. I mean, I didn't video this stuff because you guys have seen all this on the other one. But the symptoms were different this time around. So it was slipping in the middle. and there was two problems. There's always more than one, it seems, in my projects. So the first was that there was some gunk that had been wrapped around the spindle on the back of this panel here, which is one of the key pulleys. And it looked like somebody had put some dial cord into the groove, and I think that might have been to try and overcome the other problem, which was the variable condenser was too stiff. So since I had this front panel off, I bit the bullet. I tried various, squirting with cleaner and stuff, and it didn't help. So since this front panel was off, I took out the variable condenser completely, because the rubber mounts underneath had all deteriorated anyway. It's kind of funny, they hadn't hardened. They had started to go all sort of sticky and gooey, which is kind of weird. Anyway, so I took the variable condenser out, and it actually turned out to be the bearing on the other side here. There's a little ball, a single ball bearing that presses against the end of the shaft. And that had all gummed up, and that was really the main problem. So when I cleaned all that up, sorted all that out, suddenly it's nice and free now, and so I was able to put the whole thing back together. And yeah, it's basically doing its thing. The other thing I did was there was the front, one of the speaker mounts was completely missing. And again, the rubber mounts had gone all hard in this case, as you normally expect. And so I replaced all the mounts, and I refitted the speaker. There were some bare wires on the audio output transformer, and so I did a bit of liquid tape very delicately on there to sort all that out. So I think that's about it. Oh yeah, the other big problem that I encountered, completely unexpected, is when I was working on all this stuff and I got it all back together and I switched it on, it was working fine, and then suddenly it completely stopped working on all bands. And I thought, serves me right for trying to get that last bit of touch-up done. Anyway, what that turned out to be was a faulty contact in this IF can. And so since it's a bit of a nightmare to unsolder these things from underneath, what I did was I just undid the bolts underneath the chassis and lifted off the can. And it turned out, I'm still not 100% sure exactly why. Let's see if I can turn it all the way around here, because I put really short leads on everything. Bear with me here a second. So yeah, I had to replace the grid lead coming out of this IF transformer onto the 6K7. And there was some sort of a fault in the joint. It looked perfectly okay, but it would go up in circuit and I couldn't see any reason why. So I replaced it all, and it's solid as a rock now. So I think that's where we're going to leave it right now. I'm going to put it back in its case, and then I think that's me done with Radialvas for quite a while. I'll put it back in the cab, and then I'll do a little short clip with both of them running side by side. So here we go, 2 sets done for now. I don't plan on posting any more clips of these guys for quite a while, if ever. So on the left we have the Rebuild, which is slightly lighter, Bakelite tone.
Went away. There'd be 1,000 hours in the day. Without you, I know.
And here is the Restore, which is from my neighbor's grandparents.
At the very start, all my bridges burned. By my flaming heart, you never leave me